Yeah, I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
Welcome back to the Passion for Craft podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about some questions that we have received from you. So the whole format today is we're just answering questions. And by we, these guys are going to be answering some great questions.
I mean, what are we, 16, 20 episodes in? 15,
Yeah.
16?
20 episodes in.
Yeah. So we've been doing this long enough that you guys are, contributing and talking and on Patreon and asking questions. And so I think it's time to, answer some questions because they tend to fall into categories and it's kind of the same kind of things.
Yeah, and I think if you're sitting there and you're like, I've been asking a question since episode 2 and you guys won't answer me, I think it's a good question, but I think we're trying to figure out the best medium in which to answer them. It's kind of hard to do a sides and answer a question, or maybe the question you ask isn't for a full podcast, but hopefully we get to answer a lot of those questions here today.
Yeah, and I've got the iPad pulled up right here. We'll just go through these in order. So I did a video asking for questions in the comments underneath. We got tons of great questions.
On Patreon, you did a video.
Yeah, on Patreon. And we had one from Discord that was after the video. So I think I start with this one, then we move to the Patreon.
That's great.
It says this one is for Richard. I'm planning on putting some nickel gap Windsor 1, of course, on my ceiling this summer. I thought it might make the most sense to start at the seam in the ceiling where the angle is at the left. There's a picture here. I plan on ripping the back of the first piece so that I can open the board like a book so that the seam is covered completely, and then add the boards to the left and right as I work towards the walls on the left and right. The seam is very uneven, although it is apparent in the attached photo. Thoughts? So basically he's got a vaulted ceiling that does this. It's not a 90. Mm-hmm. And right on the seam he wants to start installing his boards, which I think is a great location to do it because you could kind of take one board and split it so you have kind of consistency in the pattern of the tongue and groove. Or you could just put two right next to each other. Then you go out from there and whatever ends up at the end is kind of, at the end of the wall.
Right.
He's saying the seam is like very uneven, and I notice this a lot on vaulted ceilings. I don't know if it's the framing or the drywall or what, but if you look at a vaulted ceiling where the horizontal ceiling meets like the slope,
yeah,
you'll see a lot of waviness in it. So what I've done this situation before. I just kind of float the back out with shims and make that waviness like disappear. So instead of trying to follow that waviness, you basically altogether eliminate it by floating the back out with shims. So to answer that question, that's exactly what I would do. I know it's kind of very visual, but we'll have a thing up on the screen. Thoughts on that one? Anything, or did I pretty much answer
I think you nailed it.
Okay.
I don't know how to answer that question, so I think you.
All right. So we'll go through these. We'll just start in order. First one is from Dan Parrish. Just kidding. That's Dan Parrish. Millworks by Design out in Los Angeles. We had him on. Super motivating. One of my favorite episodes by far. We did 2 episodes with him.
Who's your least favorite?
There was this guy, Brent Hole, that came on.
Cute.
Has Richard hired a couple more carpenters? So during that episode, I kind of got all fired up and like, oh man, I want to, be the next Dan Parrish and be, hire all these guys, and not all these guys, but he motivated me to want to expand my company. Mm-hmm. So I went through like a week, like a whirlwind of like, man, I got to do this. Yeah. And like, I even put like a video out, we're hiring, and had several people interested. And one guy really worked out. So to answer the question, I haven't hired a couple more carpenters. I hired one more guy. And just having that third guy has been a game changer. Like we're able to accomplish so much more just with one guy. And this guy is like a secret weapon. He's a master carpenter. His name's Tom Johnson. He's been a trim carpenter for 35 years. And it's such a good experience because he mentors me and just tells me like, like I'll be doing something, he'll be like, no, like you want to do it this way. And I'm like, thank you for that. You know, he's willing to teach. And so to answer the question, Dan, I'd have started and I've hired one more.
So I want to just hit pause on this one because I think another episode we're going to spend on what Richard does next. And so we're going to dive into Richard's business and talk about that kind of stuff. But
all up in his business.
Yeah, Dan Parrish was the start for that, right? That the whole episode was a challenge for you. And so let's talk about that because that's, I think, something a lot of guys can learn from. Obviously, you've got a huge following. A lot of guys look at your stuff. You're really evolving as a businessman and a craftsman in this whole process. And so I think there's a lot we can learn from there.
Yeah. And it's going to be a fun journey. And I was motivated by Dan, motivated by you. That whole day we went out and got barbecue and just talked, driving around in the truck. And I was like, man, but yeah, we'll hit pause on that because we can dig into that one a little bit deeper.
Get excited to hear more in a future episode.
Yeah.
Next
or
question.
past episode.
That's true. Twilight Zone. Next question is from Joel Stilson. I'd like to see/hear some thoughts on exterior window and door trim for cold climates. I'm located in upstate New York. Everyone here, as I'm sure as much of the country, goes with vinyl siding and aluminum flashing and wrapping. Maybe thoughts on a good wood species to use here. We have plentiful white and red oak, poplar, and pine. What do you think about that one, Brent? About wood species for exterior.
Before you dive in, I've actually been curious about this, and I know we've got one in the works, a Build Science then versus now video or podcast that we want to talk about both of those things. But I've also been curious about this exact thing. So Joel asked this, right?
Joel, yes.
So when Joel asked, I was like, Joel, he gets it. But
my guy,
I was very curious because a lot of things that you've developed and are done here in Fort Worth, but then also at the same time, you learned most of the things in Boston. So it gets chilly up there, I've heard. But then we're not, like when we were interviewing Eric Ani, he is in like Coldsville, USA. Like the places that he works at are frigid. So is there like an element of build technology or like things that we need to lean into more up north, like in the great winter zone?
Yeah, the quick answer is it doesn't matter. Okay, whether it's cold climate or hot climate, wood is going to perform. Okay, and his examples of using vinyl and aluminum is just cheap building. It isn't a build science issue. Okay, so the build science piece is building a house that is long lasting and that's energy efficient, right? And so that it's going to block, it's going to keep water out and it's going to keep air infiltration out, right? So air infiltration is going to be accomplished by your sheathing on your outside and then your sealing of the windows and doors in those openings.
Is that not what he's talking about with the aluminum sidings? Or
no, because that's outside. That's your second layer, right? So you've got your sheathing, and then you've got whatever you're going to put clad your house in. So,
you just break those two down for me as a dumb guy.
So you got framing, right?
Yep.
And then you'll have some kind of sheathing board, right? And
like drywall. Is that what you're talking about?
Nope, exterior. I'm talking about the exterior frame. You have a 2x4 wall on the outside, then keep going outside.
Yeah.
You've got your sheathing, okay, which is the green board they're putting up on buildings. The tie they put.
Is that primarily wood?
It's primarily plywood.
Okay.
Okay. And so it's like a chipboard or it's like or it's plywood.
Cool.
Okay. So that's your sheathing. Okay. And then you have your cladding. Okay. And your cladding would be either brick or wood siding or vinyl siding or, whatever they're going to put on, stucco. And so anyway, so those are your three different things. The energy efficiency part happens on your sheathing level. Okay. It happens on the, how you seal up the house. Okay. And keep water out.
So that's how tight you're putting together the plywood?
Partly, but I mean, if you're just
I guess I'm confused. Like, why is that the part? Like, what about it? Like, what can make it have flaws versus what can make it work?
I'm going to stay with this question because you're kind of chasing down another avenue, I think. Because you're sheathing, okay, and your area where you stop the air infiltration and water infiltration. End of story. Right? Mm-hmm. And so then the material you're cladding in your outside, which is what he's talking about, is a separate thing. He's bringing up the idea of vinyl siding and aluminum flashing. Well, that's you've already accomplished the build science piece conceivably when at the sheathing. Okay.
I guess that's why I'm asking the follow-up about what can cause problems in the sheathing, because it sounds like something in the build science piece isn't working out here. So I'm hopefully giving another troubleshooting thing.
No, I think you're confusing. Okay. The what the purpose of, because he's asking about what wood quality you use and what to do. I know too many high-end builders up in New England building on in Long Island and everything, and they're using wood cladding. Okay, and so the woods that are going to be long performing exterior woods are things like Akoya, Caboni, which are engineered woods. Okay, those are engineered pines. Sapele, I know that they use mahogany, and I know they use redwood, and so they are using premium quality hard and soft woods that are long lasting as their exterior trim elements. Okay, now what this guy may be, what I would encourage him to do is fight for those better quality products that aren't vinyl and aren't aluminum, because what that's going to allow you to do is custom make profiles, custom make moldings and trim details so that they're more historically authentic and more historically accurate and look better. But that's what the high-end guys do. They would never put vinyl on the outside of a building. They would use wood, but knowing that everybody wants longevity, they would build it in a way so that it performs well and looks great, right?
That's the problem with a lot of these vinyls and PVCs. Like when I did that PVC video about that window, I was like, I did some research. Can I even find these profiles in PVC? It's mostly just basic kind of bland profiles. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they can custom mill PVC, I'm sure, but I don't know what all goes into that. Mm-hmm.
I'm consulting with these people all around the country, and they're building with these builders, and I'll say, well, send me the moldings that you're planning on using. Send me your molding catalog. Send me send me an AZEK catalog. Send me, because they're trying to trim out a column. So my builder's only going to build the exterior column out of AZEK. Okay, well, let me see the profiles that AZEK has, and they're crap. They're terrible, and so you can't build with them.
AZEK is a PVC manufacturer.
And so, sorry. They're not as good as they could be. They're not as beautiful as they could be. And so you end up with junky looking things. Mm-hmm. Exactly Richard's point. The vinyl's the same way, and, they just don't, Hardy's the same way. All of these new manufactured PVC concrete, materials don't have good profiles.
All right. I think we answered that one. Just try to kind of fight for it.
You fight for it. Amen.
Next question from Tyler Romaguera. What is a good price per square foot for new construction trim packages, ranging from track homes to nicer custom, quote, McMansions? 60 cents per foot, $1.20 per foot, more. What can a new carpenter who runs his own business expect to make per foot? Also, when a builder says, this is what we pay, how much wiggle room is there for negotiation? Or if the price isn't right, do you just keep on down the road? So, I think people would expect me to know this answer as a trim contractor, but I don't. I never really did new construction trim packages for the builder. What I did was I would go in and do something that's unique. I remember when I even started on YouTube, I would do my projects and then paint, and people were like, what in the world? You're painting this? Yeah. Because my little niche was always, hey, you just had your house built. What the builder didn't do, we'll come in and do what I call aftermarket upgrades. You want that coffered ceiling now? We could do it for a better price. Right. Because the builders, they've got you kind of in the palm of their hand, and they can really gouge you. And
Yeah.
that's not me saying that. That's dozens of homeowners telling me that.
Mm-hmm.
They said, man, this is like less than half of what the builder was going to charge me.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's still profitable for me. So all that to say, I never really did new construction trim packages. But what I will say is moldings are like $120 a foot for like a finger joint kind of basic profile. So you would just need to add on like your labor cost to that if you're providing the material.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I did. I just went in and said, hey, we're going to run this room of crowns 40 linear foot. I can get the crown for $120, and then I figure out how long it's going to take. Then I just say, all right, $6 a foot for us to turn this room around.
Right.
So I think it depends on market too, where you are. You're going to have people paying more and, higher end markets, more populated markets
Totally.
versus, just some rural areas. But it's hard to answer because I don't want to say the wrong thing and then someone's
I would flip the tables on this thing, and it is, you do not want to get into a conversation about price. Okay, you do not want to be, well, I'll do it for $122 a foot. I'll do it for $121 a foot. Right? You don't want to do that.
Come on down.
Right. You want to have the conversation of, well, what are you trying to accomplish? How long do you want it to last? What do you want it to look like? And my advice to this person would be, say, look, for a year or two of your life, okay, you should chase after those builders and just fight that battle and learn how to do it as fast as possible, as good as possible.
So play the game for 1 to 2 years.
Yes.
And then once you've established the skill, like use those as training grounds.
Yes.
Establish your skills, and then once you've got the skills and you've got the ability to do it, then it's time to start
Gary
saying.
Katz
we're
was
fighting
talking
for
about
quality.
that,
Yeah.
and they were talking about him on apartments, and I just love the genius of him learning how to trim on apartments. And the reason he became a great teacher is because he taught his people under him how to do it, and they had a specific way of doing it. That's the skill set you want to learn when you're working for those guys. But hopefully, if you're following our stuff and you're doing the Tuesday drops and looking at those catalogs I'm putting out there, you understand that there's a range of different. Here's what would be a better conversation for this trim carpenter to have. If he could go to the builder and say, look, it looks like you're trying to build a colonial revival house. Okay, the typical colonial revival house would have and all of a sudden he has changed that conversation to being the expert. Okay, and now that builder's looking at him going, how'd that guy even know that? And I don't know what the trim package for a colonial revival house is supposed to be. And God, we can really do that. Yeah. And all of a sudden you have changed your conversation from being, I'll do it for $1.20 to here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Here's what this should look like. Here's our way to do it. And so, look, I think you should play that game and get really good at your craft, right? There's some of the 10,000 hours, but you also should be learning because the arts and crafts style is really, really popular right now. Wouldn't it be great if you go, well, this is kind of a craftsman house. Would you like to have a craftsman package in there? And are you doing it stain grade or paint grade? And all of a sudden you're asking questions and no one else is asking, and you've separated yourself from everybody else who just is going to show up and put it in. Now, there will be builders who won't want that, and that's fine, but you should be weeding out the builders that you want to work with anyway. And so, anyway, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, a lot of questions that I've heard people ask is, how do I get to that next echelon of builders? Like right now I'm working with a quality of builder that's not this, and how do I get to that next level? And I think that's the answer, right? Is to sit down, take a day of work where you are walking through, all right, I want to do a colonial package, and then think through how much that's going to cost you. And have an idea of a colonial craftsman. Take the most popular architecture styles that you're seeing, because presumably you working in the job, you're seeing a lot of different styles come by, and create a package out for those. Be ready, come ready to answer questions, and then be able to present that to someone. So, but then outside of that, the short answer to the question and the answer to your immediate question is, cost of materials plus labor, figure out what that cost of material is, and then add labor to that, chase that down for a couple of years, get as many of those jobs as you can under your belt, and then start to figure out what your packages look like. And
well, I don't know if you're necessarily sitting down to figure out packages. You should be sitting down to figure out architecture, right?
There you
go.
go.
The first book that we got at North Bennett Street was the Virginia McAllister's
Field Guide to American Houses.
And it's still a work that I go back to, and I didn't know, okay, and I have a better understanding now, but I didn't know what a Second Empire building was. I didn't know what an Italianate building was.
I don't know what an
right. And so and so you're like, oh, okay, well, and so you got to figure these things out, and so that time. I don't think you're necessarily figuring out what a colonial revival package is, because you probably don't even know what colonial revival is.
So first figure out what you mean.
Yes.
And then figure out what you cost.
Because
how you price what you mean.
What you want to do is you don't want to necessarily go into that builder, although you can. You don't want to go into that builder and say, my colonial revival package costs this. You just want to go and say, this house is trying to be colonial revival. Would you like to take it there? Right? And so all of a sudden you become the designer, because I'm telling you, 99% of builders out there have no idea what they're building, what's going on.
All right, so I'm a builder. I know nothing about what's going on. You just came to me and you've showed me a great package, but you're using words that I don't understand what's going on. So I would probably respond with something like, all right, well, show me what that package would look like. So what would you do then?
Yeah, I would be surprised if he asked that, but I think that's
well, I think it'd be pretty fair for him to go, oh, show me, put a few samples together and we'll see.
Yeah, no, I suspect that's right. And you don't want that guy to yank your chain, right? And just kind of give him a bunch of ideas, be too expensive. Then he goes to his cheap guy and goes, yeah, just do that, right? And so, what you were describing earlier was, working through builders. How do you get better quality builders? You're going to find that builder you're going to click with, and he's going to go like, because the dilemma the builder has, especially if he's a custom builder, is,
tell me about it,
is originality. Okay. And his thing is he is competing and bidding against, 3 other builders, and they're all trying to put in the house out there at $750,000. And how do I get distinctive from him versus him versus him versus him? So they throw a bunch of crazy stone on the house. They put a turret on the house. They're throwing all kinds of crap out there, trying to get the house to be different so they can attract new customers. And so if you come in as the trim carpenter and say, look, all of a sudden you give him fresh ideas, and you can say, and he says, well, I was thinking about a built-up crown. Well, what kind of built-up crown? If we could do it this way, and all of a sudden he sees an opportunity to make himself distinct from everybody else, and he's going to attach to you. So you're right. There is totally the builder that's going to go, well, show me what that looks like. Yeah, well, okay. And then get some cheap guy to do it. Or, when you truly explain the cost to him of what that really is, no, we don't want to do that. No one's going to pay for that. Those guys are out there for sure. Okay.
That's the vast majority. I feel like.
But you're trying to find the guys who care and, who understand, and that's where you're going.
All right. But I'm trying to put bread on the table. I think, in that instance, what do you do?
Yeah, no, I think
you put bread on the table.
Yeah,
I think you got to.
Yeah. And that's
totally.
why,
Well, because
while you're putting that bread on the table, on your lunch break, maybe you're reading a book, because what you're trying to do is basically make yourself more valuable. Yeah. If you would have came to me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready to do these kind of jobs.
Right.
And I still have a lot to learn. But, they say there's a prepared time and place for a prepared person. Yeah. Like if you can't go talk to the builder about all these styles when you don't know. And hopefully, watching these podcasts, the education you're getting here, education outside of this is going to make you more valuable. Then you're going to be like, man, I have all this information. I want to use it, So like if I would have came to you and you were like, hey, install this entablature. I'm like, and what is it? Entabla what?
What'd you call me?
Yeah.
You got to kind of know. And we also have a long way to go, but just start the journey to make that pivot. Do what you got to do now. It's exactly what I did. And then just, you'll have an opportunity. Justin asks, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around how to change my pork chop into a filet mignon. especially when using vinyl siding and vinyl soffit and a 2x6 fascia. Do I need to learn how to bend shapes with the bender, or would it involve shifting from aluminum fascias to wood exterior trim pieces? Brent already answered this one. I think you know the answer. It does not involve bending vinyl. Was that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was Brent.
So, do you want to speak any more on that? So you got the pork chop in return, and he wants to turn it into a filet mignon. So
I mean, look, it sounds like he's a craftsman who is trying to educate himself, who's watching the videos going, oh yeah, we probably could do that better. I wonder what I should, and I would say he needs to graduate to that next level of, building the proper gable end return. Instead of doing the pork chop end, do a proper gable end return.
How does that work?
Well, it has to be the right house, probably building one in his garage, and testing it and trying it out at 3 different ways. It probably involves him, talking to some of the builders about, hey, we need to do it this way, and finding someone who buys in and appreciates it, and then, elevating his game to get up there. But you can't do that with vinyl, like we were talking about earlier. But I love that he's won too.
Yeah.
well, you probably saw it on one of your videos or something where you're talking about the gable in return, and it sparked something in him. Like,
Yeah.
oh wow, there's an opportunity to do something.
There's also been a bunch of posts about, I know what this is because of our Discord, because someone was showing off a pork chop, and they were like, well, it should be a gable end return. And and I'm a little curious, like, if I'm this guy and I just asked this question, I don't know if I've gotten like the answer I'm looking for, because it sounded like the question was, how do I do this? Do I do vinyl
How
or
to change my pork chop into a filet mignon using vinyl siding, vinyl soffit.
Oh, using vinyl. Okay.
That's what it seems like he's using.
So the answer is you can't, right? To this question, the answer is you can't
you
do it
probably
using
could
vinyl?
put something together, but I think the answer is you shouldn't,
Okay.
right? Because you want it to be the
Because
right
I don't know.
house.
I'm trying to. I hope we're answering this question the best way possible.
yeah,
So, like,
no.
if the answer is no, you can't use vinyl. You need to use a proper thing. And then the answer is you go look it up on Google, or I mean,
So
you're the master here, so help us
client
out.
come to you and ask you this. What do you tell them? Like, let's do it in wood. That would be your thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what you said here. So hopefully,
Yeah, I'm not trying to not answer his question, but I'm also, we talked about it earlier. There is a whole, slate of products on our jobs: vinyl, plastic, concrete, all the different things that have been put together by manufacturers to be faster and quicker to put up. Okay, and sometimes longer lasting. Okay, or supposedly longer lasting. Those products have not been, vetted by architects and anybody else. They've been vetted by manufacturers to make things faster and cheaper to put together. They're snap-in-place products. And so he's saying, well, I want to do it the right way, but I want to use these products that have been developed and oriented to be fast and quick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't really do that because those were never developed to be like that.
Yeah.
They were developed to be fast and quick, and so right. And
Yeah,
so
I think that's a better,
That's a great
helpful
answer.
if you're cooking, right, and you have there's a cooking analogy. Help me out here.
Cooking
there's a
analogy.
brisket that takes 15 hours, and then
Yeah.
there's a sausage in the microwave.
Well, also there's
Right, it's something like that. Right?
here's a cooking analogy. So
There's always a
there's an
food
account
analogy.
I follow on TikTok that this guy goes, is it worth it to make it yourself? So he goes to the store and he buys, the most recent one I saw is he bought store-bought tortillas, so like whatever, and $3.49 a bag. And then he goes, is it worth it to make a tortilla on your own? So he buys the raw materials, works it out, makes the dough and everything, and he heats up the tortillas that he bought from the store, and he has his freshly cooked tortillas, takes a bite out of one, and it's like, that's pretty good. I mean, it's a normal tortilla. Takes a bite out of the other one, and like, all right, that one's way better. So it's that idea, right?
Right,
It's
Yeah.
it's
just-
that idea.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Thank
So-
you. Good job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you figured that out.
But so the answer to the question ultimately is, hey, try and do it in wood. Don't do it in vinyl. And I guess I think what the problem with me right now is I have a fundamental misunderstanding of the word vinyl. What does that mean?
Vinyl is like a form of plastic.
Okay.
Yeah, like
But it's made to look like wood, or what's the what?
Yeah, you have vinyl siding.
Okay.
There's vinyl trim. Yeah, it's just like an imposter wood product.
Okay.
Yeah, they if you look at the history of kind of the wood sidings replacements, it was first aluminum and metal siding that were replacing wood. There's a great movie called The Tin Men about these salesmen who were selling metal siding. And then vinyl came in, and then concrete came in. And so vinyl's probably from the 60s or 70s. Metal siding's probably 50s, 60s. Vinyl's probably 70s, 80s. Concrete's probably 80s, 90s. Right? I don't know. And so
the other problem with all that is you're talking about what's stood the test of time. We have years and years and years and years and years of brick and wood, but now we've got maybe 50 years worth of metal siding.
Yeah, and so I was saying that you're saying what's vinyl. It was one of the other wood replacement products that has been developed over the last 50 years. And there are new ones every 20 years, I guess was my point, that, come along and there's the new wonder siding.
To replace,
And why don't we just do it in wood if we know how to put wood up? It's just...
Because it costs more.
The other day I went to Home...
Sometimes Hardy's expensive.
The other day I went to Home Depot. I'm surprised I didn't see you there. But
I know, yeah.
No, I
home
went
away
there
from home.
And I went to go grab like a 2x4 or something, and I walked through the molding section on my way there, and I looked at the PVC section, and I was like, it looked like real wood. I was like, whoa, this is a really cool new product. And I started like digging. I'm like, this actually looks like wood. Like, how'd they do this? And then I like picked it up and like looked at the end of it. I was like, oh, they put it in the wrong section. It was wood. I was like, this is actually something I would use. This is so cool looking, but it was wrong.
That's a funny story.
Yeah. All right. Next one from MD Waselka. And sorry if I butcher your name. My question has to do with this week's podcast. If you have clients who want a feature that wouldn't ultimately prove architecturally wise for their home's look, how have you steered them away from that tactfully?
No, you idiot. No. You don't put vinyl on a historic house.
Which is true. I mean, usually...
That's how you do it with your clients, right?
Usually I will steer them to the historic precedent. And if they just are adamant, then it's their house. I do what they want. But they, here
we go. Let's play it out. I'm a client. I'm your client. All right. Hey, Brent. I saw this Instagram video, and there's this really cool feature I want to put on my house. Insert bad thing here.
I would say
I want to put vinyl on my house.
I'd say, well, here's the conversation we've been having about your house. Okay, we're trying to do a Tudor revival house, making up the style.
This is great. No, we're making up all of this right now.
Tudor revival style house,
yeah.
Which means that it's going to be defined by these materials. Okay, the ones that are going to be most recognizable are the stone, the pitch of the roof, the slate, all these different things that are going to characterize and help narrate and create a story that is believable. So introducing X product
vinyl siding
in your house
gonna look great.
is going to be a disconnect, and so it's going to cause you to kind of go, wait, I was in an English countryside, and now all of a sudden I'm in Plano, Texas, right? And so what happened? Where did I go? And so that's probably why I wouldn't use that product.
But I'm still having a hard time because the Instagram video that I watched, it said that vinyl siding is a must-have on all Tudor revival homes.
I would probably look at you incredulously like you're kidding, right?
Like you just did. Okay.
Yeah. And so it should be just be like, no, that's not true. And so
unfollow that guy.
Yeah. Exactly. Maybe you shouldn't be watching TikTok.
Show me the video. Yeah, that's great.
So it's just a conversation about education. You're trying to create this look. This doesn't fit with that.
And look, you said it earlier. We are constantly educating our clients. Constant. I mean, and so I had a client build a pool on the back of a house that was, this great I'm not going to say style, the great style house that we did everything so authentically. And then they put this pool that looked like it was from Disneyland with this built-in slide and a rock wall. And you're just like, ugh, it was terrible. So much so that I can't even take pictures of the back of their house because the pool's so bad. So, but it's their house, right?
Thanks for your work.
So that's what they wanted. Great.
You think Austin
get it.
could angle it where it's like...
And so I tried to, say to them when I saw the design, because they kept me out of that, right? They didn't want me part of that design process. And I said, hey, I saw the pool. Is that anything you guys want to talk about? And he said, nope, we're pretty good. And I said, okay. That was their house.
Yes, sir.
No, we don't want to talk to you about the pool.
So
It's like a kid hiding there. Do you want to talk about your grades? No, man. Okay.
Because I saw what was on that design.
I saw what was on your blueprint, young man. No,
that's
it's the teacher's really hard.
You're like about to walk past the blueprint. Hey, let's come this way.
Roll it up really fast. Nah.
All right, so just tell them they're idiot and... No, I'm just kidding. Just...
You're dumb. You don't know as
It's part
much
of the
as me.
fight. It's part of this education procedural thing where you are trying to educate and bring your client around.
In my mind, it kind of brings up a bigger issue, bigger potential issue is if you're sitting here and you're like, well, I don't want to talk to my client about that. It's like, do you have the relationship with your client to be able to have that frank conversation with them? Because if you don't, maybe you should be a little more upfront with them, a little more open with them of, hey, this is what we've got going on. This is what we want to accomplish here.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And you have to win that role, okay, to be in that position with that client. You have to have the expertise and the knowledge to reassure them that, there's someone, you're a voice they can trust. And so, sometimes it's only in the realm of trim, right? And so you have to earn the respect for the whole thing so that you can talk to them and you become a trusted advisor. But it takes
Read
time.
some books.
Got to read some books.
Okay, so next question is from Mike Coville. I don't really understand this one, but I hope Brent can enlighten us. I've never been able to figure out the detail at the top of a porch column supporting the architrave. It looks like the architrave/beam is supported by its drip edge. I can send a scan of a typical detail I have seen, but I think not here. And then you put a email where he could send it. Did he ever send it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what he's talking about is that, the porch beam that comes around, there's a little, sometimes they actually build down that architrave so that, it goes back up about 1/4 of an inch on the underside of the beam. You know what I'm talking about? So
You got your beam across the porch edge, and you're saying the column will go up into it or come down from it?
Kind of. If this is your porch beam, I want to look at it in section like this, right? And your column's coming in here, and your porch beam's running there.
Okay.
Sometimes right down here,
On that front corner
on
edge?
the front edge and the back edge, it'll come down about 1/4 of an inch or even half of
It'll
an
go
inch.
into the beam a little bit.
Well, and so that's why he's asking that, is because do you then notch the column around the beam where that little thing? And I said, no. What we do is we make that little indent right here, we make that into a panel. And so we'll stop on the underside here and underside here of the column so that it creates a little panel underneath there, underneath the bottom. And so if you have like 2 columns here, we might do 3 panels underneath on the underside of that beam.
And the panels will be connected to each other, just continuous story.
Oh,
Makes
so
sense.
you kind of using the underside of the beam as a feature?
Yeah.
Like
That's smart.
using the
And so
opportunity.
because otherwise what he's saying is then when those little fins go down and stand on the column and then there's a gap, sometimes it looks weak, okay? It doesn't look like the beam's strong enough to be held up by these 2 little 3/4 inch posts go down. And so
That panel helps
I got
add the
you.
strength.
panel ends looks like it's now built out and it builds strength. But the other thing is that you also, if you've got a wood column, you need to have it breathing. So we are, sometimes we'll create air gaps in the back side of the beam so that it can move air through there, especially if you have a wood column.
What does it mean to be breathing? Just side note.
So the wood if you were using wood columns, most people don't, so that doesn't matter. But
Idiots.
the wood columns will have rotted out in the past because they water would get in and it didn't.
Oh, they don't have any air. Okay,
It couldn't dry out, and so the base of the column would rot because they weren't breathing, and so there's supposed to be an air travel that goes from the top of the column down through the column that creates airflow, and if you're going to use a real wood column and you want that airflow, you need to allow for a place to escape at the top. And so,
Yeah, I saw that on one of your jobs. The column had like a little weep hole at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And final question for this episode is, what different kind of homes has Brent lived in throughout his life as a craftsman? Does he have plans to build a newer home for himself with all of his knowledge he has attained over the years? So that one's directly for you, Brent. What kind of houses have you lived in?
So my first house was
cardboard box.
I lived in a cardboard box in the middle of the streets.
And then I was living in a van.
That's a Monty Python reference, by the way.
And an SNL one. So
so 2 references for you to go check out on YouTube.
Eating government cheese.
First house, 1930s bungalow. Okay, there was 3 houses built by a speculative builder. Our house had been upgraded by the homeowner. Had stone columns on the front, stone balustrade, maple floors in the kitchen. Typically, you only have pine floors. So there's a few like upgrades. We actually had the original plans for the house. It was an older 1930s. That's where you were born.
I remember.
You don't remember.
Clark Street.
It was on Clark, and
In your face.
that was our first house. Then we lived in a period revival Mediterranean house for about 5 years. Fixed that up. It was a great house, and then that was in the period revival neighborhood.
That was a very nice house.
Then if you followed that video, that YouTube video that was about me and my life, we had to sell that, and then we moved into a colonial revival house. That was built in the 40s, and then we've now live in a house built in the 60s. So I would
blasphemy.
You just been upgrading.
I've been living in each
40s.
generation of houses. We looked recently at a house that was built in the 20s. They did, and
well,
actually a concrete house actually, and so but we decided we didn't want to do that. Look, I'm 57. I'm not sure I have the energy or the money to do that. I get to live vicariously through my clients, and we build
That's awesome.
freaking believable projects, doing unbelievable things, and I don't have to upkeep them.
Yeah, maintenance on
so
those things.
it's kind of that ranch project we're on right now is a timber frame barn. It's log cabin. I mean, it's everything. It's the dream house.
Yeah.
And so it's freaking you're doing all the trim out there.
Yeah.
I mean, right? That freaking house is unbelievable.
It's beautiful.
And
yeah.
so it's like I don't feel like the need or with the withdrawal that gosh, I really have to live in something architecturally pure.
Yeah.
We get to do it all the time. And so it allows me to travel more, spend more on travel and things like that. So
The other, you also got to build what I would have said was maybe not your dream home, but a dream home for your dad
yeah,
and
that's
mom,
true.
which was cool.
That's true. We did a really great English house for my dad.
And I feel like it was kind of carte blanche, like
It was
build
a
it
little
the
bit.
way you would want to build it.
It was a little bit that way.
I guess your dad kind of came to you and said, build it right. And then you did.
Yeah, that's true. And that was a lot of fun. We went over budget. That wasn't fun.
Where is this at?
It's here in Fort Worth.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
It's probably a fun conversation to have with your dad.
yeah, no, that is actually a very fun thing.
So since I'll just add a little something to the end of this. But since it sounds like you're not planning to build your own house, if you were, what style of architecture would you build?
That's a great addendum to that. Because that person just asked that question and was like, oh, so he's not going to answer.
One of my favorite styles is Greek Revival. But if you had the American Greek Revival house is iconic in my mind because it can be austere and modern and contemporary, but also be historic. And so but that piece of property in my mind has to be built on the right piece of property. So you would need probably 5 or 6 acres with land around it and everything else. Yeah. And so a Greek Revival, if I had the right property, would be one. If I was doing an infill in like the city, I would probably do something in the Craftsman bungalow, style. One, I think I could nail it. I really do. And so we get all the details right and really do it handsomely and really do it in a wonderful way with great windows and everything else. And so those would probably be the 2 styles I would build. Yeah.
Man, I would love if there was like an architectural guild that just had the money to go hire a bunch of architects to build houses in the way that they're supposed to be built. Like, they get
There's
the guys.
Something to that. I've had people say that, and a lot of people ask that.
It'd be really cool.
There are some historic plan services people out there.
Yeah.
But I agree. That's a good idea.
It would also just, like, people are so visual nowadays, like the YouTube video, the YouTube house tour of those would be amazing. Like, I want to build a house. Oh, go check out the Architectural Guild's video on whatever.
Yeah.
You and Dan need to work on something.
Yeah, get that going.
Yeah, get that going.
All right.
Sweet.
Well, wind it down?
I guess we're short on time. We want to do all these questions justice. So if your question was not answered, we are going to do a part 2 of this video, as we decided during this video, which is really exciting. But we're going to keep on we're going to keep on answering questions, but we also hope that you would keep asking questions as well. Again, there's a place to do that in our Discord, just questions for the podcast. And then there's also a place to do that for our Patreon as well. So ask away. More questions, the better. Thanks for watching.